Hola, buenos dias.
Hello.
Okay, this is VortiX. I'm going to do one of my career interviews where I ask him some things about the past, like high points of his career, low points. So the first thing I wanted to start out with for you is that obviously your brother's known from Warcraft 3. You were actually also a Warcraft 3 player as well, like towards the end. From remembering in past interviews we did, I remember you were an Undead player and you said you didn't play very much. You just played like a 20 games a week or something like this. But you said you had like a nice run in WC3L, that online league. If you didn't play very much, but you were doing decently against European opposition at the end of Warcraft 3, does that mean you have like natural talent for games?
I think my brother did help me a lot. Like when I started, he was already pretty good. So yeah, he kind of always teach me new things about the game. And there was like 2 years. The first 2 years I played Warcraft 3 on 2006 and 2007. I did play quite a lot because ladder was still fine for training. Then everyone started playing custom games instead of ladder. So I started to play custom games too, and then I just went on to play like 20 games a week or so. But I think most part in Warcraft 3 was not training that much, but understanding the game pretty good.
The interesting thing is, in Warcraft 3, you played Undead, but your brother was playing Orc, and the time period when you were playing the two races was when people said that like that was the imbalanced matchup, like Orc just destroys Undead all the time. Did actually having your brother be Orc help you in that sense?
Yeah, like I think Undead versus Orc was my best matchup. Like, yeah, I did practice a lot with him because, yeah, as I said, everyone was playing custom games, and since we were brothers, we were playing a lot together. And actually, I remember losing versus very few Orcs, like only Koreans, and from Europe, I think just Ravi and LucifroN. Like I could win any other Orc pretty comfortably. So yeah.
When you were in Warcraft 3, did you actually used to ever play any of the guys who weren't so famous then but became really famous now, like Stephano and NaNiwa? Did you ever play these guys?
I didn't play with NaNiwa because he retired pretty soon. I did play some games versus Stephano, and I think I won most of them. Like I trained with him. And yeah, Sourcing too, but he was maybe a bit more well known at the end of Warcraft 3. And yeah, not many more players, I think. Basically, Stephano and Sourcing.
Okay, so if you say you did a bit of training with Stephano in Warcraft 3, did you find it kind of funny at the WCS finals when he was trying to kind of play it like he didn't even know who you were, you know, when you were playing in the final?
Well, that's Stephano, you know. But yeah.
Okay, so when you came into StarCraft 2, obviously you had this long period where you weren't really going seriously, you weren't trying to go pro until like, I think like the first third or so into 2012, like the Gathering roughly, I think. For most people who don't follow the online cups, they only really knew about you like at the IEM tournament. And so because you had this like really sick run where you won all these TVT matches, the only person who beat you on playoffs was MVP, who like everyone expects would beat you anyway. I expected when I saw interviews with you and when I talked to you that you would be like super confident, like, oh, I was playing amazing, you know, I was out of my mind. But I remember you saying an interesting thing. You said when you played ForGG, the guy you beat 3-0, you said something like you didn't even feel like you were playing that good. You felt like he kind of made some really weird mistakes and like he lost the games. Can you remember and elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, like it was like my first big event. And I wouldn't say I was like very nervous, like shaking or something, but I was very unfocused. Like I was doing things I would never do in home and so on, and taking bad decisions. And yeah, versus ForGG, it was like that. Like on the early game, he did a lot of damage to me because I was just playing really bad. I was doing things I wouldn't do on home. But yeah, at the end, I don't know why I kept winning the games. I guess, as you said, he did many big mistakes, like very determining ones. But yeah, I mean, in that tournament and overall in most tournaments, I think I'm not playing like 100%.
Because yeah, the other interesting thing is in the next series, you just beat SuperNoVa, who's like quite famous for his TVZ actually. So I also expected, hey, you would be like, oh, you know, everything went right, it was all great. But I remember there was a scenario where like in one of the games, maybe even the decider, he like cancelled Stim or something, a bit lucky on your side in that sense. The reason it's interesting is because since it was so close as to whether you beat SuperNoVa there, what I wanted to ask was, since that was like your breakout tournament internationally, and everyone knew you after that, and like your results got better, do you ever feel as though if you lose to SuperNoVa there, or if you even lost to ForGG in the first series, like would your career have still gone the same? Do you think it would have affected anything?
In what way? I mean,
like, would your confidence have been like? Was your confidence built up because you beat those guys? Did you like think, oh, I can do this style? Was there any of that effect?
no, like I knew that if I played good, I could beat them. Like I'm not intimidated by anyone being Korean or something. So yeah, it was not like I was overconfident after beating them or something. I just always try to play my best, and that's it.
Okay, so the interesting thing is you say that you weren't intimidated because they were Korean, but when you got to play MVP in the semi-final, I mean, I know you'd never played him before, but every player has heard of MVP by this point in time. He's won all those GSLs. Everyone's heard the hype that, oh, he's the best player ever in StarCraft 2. So when you actually play someone like that, is it like the opposite? Like instead of being intimidated, you thought sort of like, I want to know if this guy's really that good. Like maybe people are overrating, like maybe if I play him, I could beat him. Was there any of that?
Yeah, like actually I was overconfident in going versus him. Yeah, because he had made like a pretty bad performance in home story like a month before that. And you know, everyone was like, well, MVP is easier than SuperNoVa and ForGG and those kind of players. So yeah, I was like overconfident, like, oh sure, then I'm gonna win him. But yeah, after all, it's MVP and his experience is just much better than mine or than anyone else.
In that semi-final, did he like just completely outplay you? Was there like a moment where you realized like, I'm probably not gonna win this?
Well, actually, I think the first game we played was really close. And I think if I had won that, I would have maybe took more risks in the next games and probably try something a bit unexpected. But yeah, I lost it, and I wanted to play standard for the rest of the games, and yeah, he kind of crushed me. Like I did win a game in like a very weird counter push, but yeah, I didn't have many chances overall.
Even though you did so well at that tournament, when we went to WCS Europe, there were so many big European names there, people who like had been on form before, like Nurchios, Thorzane, people who were expected to be contending for the title. And so I think a lot of people were actually surprised when the upper bracket final was basically you and Stephano. Like, did you really? I mean, Stephano was supposed to be weak in ZVZ. That's what people said his like one weakness was. Did you really think like, okay, my ZVZ is better than his? I'm going to beat him in this final?
No, actually, on WCS Europe, I had no clue about how to play CVC. Like, if you watch the games, I didn't play like a very straight-up macro game at all. I was trying just, I don't know, like maybe fast mutas all the time or weird strategies overall. I think I was pretty lucky actually to beat Short of and Bly, because my CVC at that time was pretty bad. But yeah, I think actually I was really surprised to even win a best of 3 versus Stephano. Like if our match had been like 3 months after that, I think my chances would have been pretty high. Like actually the last time we played, I won him pretty easily, 2-0. So yeah, but at that time I didn't feel confident because my CVC was horrible.
I mean, the interesting thing is, like you say, it was only a couple of months later that it got like way better, because then you had this period where you like destroyed Snute at the THOR Open. So obviously like the level went up a bit. So what did you figure out about ZVZ, or what changed in how it was played that made you so good suddenly?
Well, basically I realized that I couldn't keep playing mutas on CVC. So I kind of started to watch replays from Koreans that...
so you like stand out in your mind? Like these are the ones that you were learning from?
Yeah, I think I watch a lot of replays from Life and Linux, and yeah, most of the times they play mutas too, but most of the times they were playing roaches, and I kind of started to figure out how I should react to certain things in the matchup. And yeah, I kept improving a lot, and actually right now in Weeks of Liberty, CVC is my best matchup.
You were saying before that it's not really that you got nervous at IEM, but like you did some mistakes, etc. It seems like in general, you've never really had like a problem with nerves at the big tournaments, but a lot of people, especially if they're either young or especially if they're like inexperienced at big tournaments, like sometimes it takes them years to get over it. Some players never do, even if they're really, really good players. Were you just always naturally like a cool customer, like you weren't bothered by things?
Like, sorry?
Were you Is it like just your personality that you don't get too worried by things, etc.? Is that why you're like that in game?
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I'm not getting nervous, but I just complain my best. I don't know why. And it's something I've tried to change, but it just seems really hard. I'm very inexperienced still, I guess. So yeah, that's it.
A lot of players, even players who actually place quite badly in pro tournaments, they all think that you have to have like pump yourself up psychologically. No, I'm going to win. I'm going to beat this guy, even if it's someone really better than you. But it sounds like you kind of have almost the opposite mentality, because you're saying like you're playing bad all the time, and you're not necessarily like, you're not like pumped up in the same way. Do you think that like that approach doesn't necessarily matter, like having to psych yourself up?
I don't think that matters at all. Like games go as they go, and I don't think your mentality is going to change anything about it.
That's one of the things that people always say about the Koreans, that they're so good at like staying calm and like neutral, and that even if they win or lose a game, you can't really tell by their face. Who do you think are the foreigners who like have this quality the best? Who do you think stands out, mentally strong and stuff?
In foreign scene, Robbie, I guess.
Robbie?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Because he's very experienced and so on, and yeah, Stephano probably too. Like, yeah, their mentality is always pretty positive about the games and so on. Yeah, I think that's the place.
When you had this game that I alluded to before, where you beat Snute, like you beat him 2-0 in the group stage, and then you just crushed him 3-0 in the final. The funny thing is, it was only like a couple of weeks later when he then went to Home Story Cup and owned everyone in ZVZ, and even beat Symbol in the final, who's now like a GSL finalist. And he told me in the interview there that you beating him there was kind of what taught him like how ZVZ had to be played, and that let him go on to beat everyone. What do you remember of the series against Snute? Like, was his level bad in ZVZ at the time? Were you just like ahead of him strategically? What do you think?
I don't think it's so much about his level, but I think that I had played versus him in ladder a lot, and I knew how he played. Like, he delays infestors a lot, and he tried to just roach push all the time. I think probably with Stephano, Symbol, and that kind of players that didn't know him so well, it worked pretty fine. But versus me, I knew how to react like almost perfectly to that strategies. And I think that's why I beat him. I don't really think like, well, maybe he improved a bit on those 2 weeks, but I don't think it was like he went from being bad in CBC to being really good. And I don't remember our series that match, but I think, yeah, it was kind of like that. He was trying to roach push me all the time, and I was defending pretty good because I knew it was coming, so yeah.
Whenever people who are European players and mainly play at European tournaments talk about what their best matchup is, they say, I'm really good in like ZVT or something. There's always a difference between playing like European Terrans and playing like Korean Terrans, for example. See, when your ZVZ got quite good, this was also the time when you went to IPL, but you got to play against Dongre-gu there. So like, was his level of ZVZ really like above all the European Zergs?
He was pretty good, sure, but I think that the main problem on IPL was that I didn't really feel like playing at all. I was playing very bad because I was very tired, and I had been on 3 tournaments in a row or something. I just didn't care too much about the games. I was playing like, just like, okay, let's play this, but I don't care if I win or not. I mean, of course I cared, but I wasn't paying much attention or something. Yeah, of course I think I wouldn't say he's much better than Europeans, but Koreans are kind of very aggressive on early game, and that's something I did not react pretty well to, and he kind of crashed me all games, but not because he's like much better than Europeans, just their way of playing is so different.
Bearing in mind you haven't actually been to many tournaments outside of Europe, like you went to IPL, you went to Brood War, Blizzard World Championships, you've actually played quite a few Korean names, whereas some of the Europeans haven't played a lot of big names, so I have a few of them written down. I want to ask you like about a couple of them and see what you thought of each of these people you've played, so. Okay, so we did a couple of them already. I wanted to know, playing against Creator, because this is a guy you played. The funny thing is, when you played him at Blizzard World Championships, you only lost 2-3, so it was like a really close series. But I think a lot of people forgot about it because they were too busy looking at like Soppy versus Parting or something like this. So he obviously went all the way to the finals. Like, how close was this series? How good was he?
I think like compared to Europeans, he has like much better micro. And then
is there some particular units that you think of when you say
well, he has like a very good Prism micro, like with War Prism, he micros much better than Europeans, I think. And then he kind of abused a bit of 2 base or even 3 base all-in. Like in the few macro games that we played, I don't think he was much better than Europeans because he was taking some really bad decisions. And overall, not defending really well to my attacks. But yeah, he has very good micro, and his 2 or 3 base all-ins are so hard to stop. And that's why he won me. Like 3 games were 3 all-ins.
One of the reasons I wanted to ask about this series was you actually were so close to beating him in the score. But the interesting thing about the end of Wings of Liberty is obviously all Protoss were complaining, you know, PvZ is totally imbalanced. And almost every Zerg, their best matchup was ZVP. And yet actually it seems like that was your worst matchup nearly all that period of time. Your ZVT is your speciality, and then you got a lot better at ZVZ. Like, why for you was ZVP difficult, but for other Zergs it was their easiest matchup?
I think that my problem is that I'm very impatient, and I always try to attack. And sometimes on CVP you just have to play very passive and just let the time go. Like, for the most part, I thought, okay, I gotta finish the game right now. But most Zergs aren't like that. They are just camping, and they are okay to go to a very long macro game. So yeah, that's why it's a bit harder for me. But anyways, I don't really think CVP is that imbalanced on Wings of Liberty.
I mean, we've all heard a million times people talk about patch Zerg thing, and part of the problem is, even if some players are patch Zergs, we all know that basically almost all Zergs who were foreign got lumped in with that category. And kind of what you were saying there, actually, a lot of your style was like aggressive, and it wasn't always just going to Infesta. But the typical patch Zerg you usually think of is the guy who just only tries to go to Infesta Broodlord every time, and then he waits, and then when it's late game, the Protoss can't win in theory. How would you describe your style, and do you think like you would have still been good with your style before the patch stuff?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm like a very aggressive player. As I say, I'm very impatient, and I try to attack all the time. Sometimes it's really bad because I give away 1 games. But yeah, I think I would have still been good even before the patch. Like, the main problem was that I didn't go to any tournament before it, and still, like, the patch did affect every Zerg in the same way. So yes, if we got better than other Zergs that were good before the patch, it's because we were destined to. Like, I don't think you can say, oh, if this guy before the patch, he would have been very bad. No, I don't think that makes many sense.
And another person you actually beat in ZVZ was Violet. You beat him at DreamHack Valencia. And actually, he's considered to have quite good ZVZ, and he was one of the favorites for that tournament. And I think people forgot about that series because you lost in the next one. You've obviously played him since now in Heart of the Swarm. Like, what do you think allowed you to beat Violet?
I think it was just the game, the way the games went. Like, before the matchup, I knew that if I played Roach versus Roach, or if he was playing Roach, I would have a very hard time. But then he played Mura, and in Mura versus Mura, I was feeling really confident. So I could say in game 1, and then in game 2, I kind of went for a cheese, a 10 pull or something. And I think maybe he was like a bit too nervous, and he reacted very bad because he canceled his suspension, like, I don't know why. And that's why I won. I don't think I was a better player than him or better in CVC at that time, but I think the series went really in my favor.
What's interesting is in the very next round of that tournament was where you played the STC. And obviously, like, in terms of names, he doesn't actually have such a huge name, but he actually has some pretty good results on his record. I think he's maybe underexposed compared to some Koreans. You were so good in TVZ leading up to that, ZVT rather. Like, what was difficult in playing his TVZ?
He was playing like very unexpectedly. Like, first game, I did win like pretty easily. It was just a micro game, and I think I crushed him. But then he was playing very weird the other games, like making some bunker rushes and stuff. And I didn't react very well because maybe I was getting a bit too nervous. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna win him too. I am on semifinals almost. And yeah, I played very bad the last 2 games. I didn't scout properly and I wasn't seeing his bunker rushes and so on. And yeah, after losing game 2, I was like extremely nervous, and third game was really, really bad for me. So I don't think like he's much better than the other Terrans I played, like ForGG or SuperNoVa and so on. But he's playing very weird in comparison to them, and most Europeans play standard on TVC, so I wasn't expecting those kinds of things.
Okay, and then another Terran actually who wasn't very famous at the time is obviously Sting. Because in this IEM Singapore, if you would have gotten past this 3-2 series, you would have had a pretty good run to the bracket, it looks like, from how that bracket was. And at the time he wasn't so known, but I mean, he practices in Europe, right? I'm not, maybe not, maybe I'm mistaken that. Okay, what did you think about this series against him? Like, were you really close to winning it?
Yeah, but I think his style is very similar to the STC, as I said. He was playing very weird, like 2 base all-ins most game, or bunker rushes and so on. And yeah, I think it was very close. But I kept falling to the same strategies over and over again. Like, I don't know why I tried to play it, I think, a bit too greedy. I should have just played safe on most games. And yeah, I think it was very close. I could have won, but well, that's it. He has won me. That's it.
When we think of TVZ in Wings of Liberty towards the end, that was one of the matchups that people also complained a lot about. Terrans saying like it's so hard to win. And the reasoning I heard people give who were Terran players as to why they said it was like so hard, because they said the problem was that if the Zerg like switch tech path they were going, then the Terran kind of had to predict like really early on and know like to switch his production completely, like okay, go to Ravens or Thors or something. And they said it was really hard to do that. That's why only really like high-level Koreans were the ones winning in TVZ. Is there any truth to this, do you think?
Well, Terrans have a scan, so if they want to know if we are going to do brawlers or ultras, they can just scan. I mean, I think that the tech changes were like too strong in CBT, but I don't think that the match was overall so imbalanced. Like when the match got to that static game where both players were maxed out and the Terran had like many Ravens, I think that tech switches didn't really matter that much. I think it was pretty okay for Terran at that point of the game. So yeah, I think Zerg was like slightly favored in that match, but I don't think it's not. I don't think the gap is as big as many people think.
Do you think it was hard for Terrans to get to the max army though? I mean, with your style, you were like killing them earlier on. Yeah,
I think so. Like unlike other Zerg players, I was playing Mutas before Infestors, and they kind of always thought like, oh, this guy is gonna go just for Musling, Baneling, Muta. Then I kind of switched fast to Ultras, and they took a lot of damage, and they didn't expect the Broodlord chain so fast, and I kept winning games on like 20-minute mark, always with that kind of gameplay. So yeah, I think it has something to do with that, but even on late game, I kept winning games, so it was not that I only won with those kinds of timings, but yeah, it helped a lot.
Okay, another Korean you played was first at the IEM Poland. He obviously went on to win the whole tournament, so everyone knows him now very well. How good did you think he was?
Very good, actually. Like as many other Korean protos, he has very good micro, and he places his force fields very well. He uses his warm prisms very well too. So he was going for those kind of 3 base all-ins all the time. And you know, it's very hard to stop them. Like everyone knows, Parting, Creator, First, and those kind of players, they are always crushing Zergs, like not in very straight up macro games, but just with those kind of pushes, it's so hard to stop. And I'm not used to playing versus Protoss with so good micro. And yeah, I was just crushed so badly.
If you could steal one skill or quality from another player, it can be any player, like what would come to mind? What would you like to add to your game that someone else has that's like a talent?
Like about Zerg have LucifroN's game knowledge. Like sometimes he has maybe some micro or macro problems, but he's reacting very well to everything because he has very, very good game knowledge, I think.
Is he like the best of the Europeans in terms of that sense?
I don't know. Maybe because I talk with him about the game, and you know, not even training with him, just talking with him about the game makes me improve a lot in every matchup. I don't know if the best European, but one of the best for sure.
Okay, for my last question, I want it to be like a hypothetical question, like imaginary. So this is going to be only in Wings of Liberty because we don't know about Heart of Swarm. Okay, so the scenario is that the aliens come to Earth. And they take over the Earth and they say, right, we can destroy Earth, but we'll give you a chance, okay? You have to play us in a game of StarCraft. And they make VortiX the captain of Team Earth, okay? He's going to pick the players that are going to save the Earth, maybe. So you have to pick a player. Let's do Korean and foreign. So I want one Zerg Korean, one Terran Korean, one Protoss Korean, and then one for all of the foreigners as well. So 6 players in total. Who would you put forward for Earth?
Like the best, right? For Koreans, I guess Linux as the Zerg, maybe. I don't know, I learn much more from his games than I can learn from any other Zerg, because I think his problem is that sometimes he makes some strategies that are very weird and maybe not good, but then you see him control his army, how he controls his infestor, how he's like burrow units all over the map, and yeah, it's kind of like he's such a great player. I just admire him very much, and maybe for the other races, I guess parting and. Good question. I don't know. I just think that on the last months, like the last 2 or 3 months of Wings of Liberty, he was like the best. He was winning most of the things. He won Blizzard World Championship and so on. So yeah, I would pick him. MVP, I guess. Just because maybe on the last months of Wings of Liberty, he wasn't playing that good. But overall, he's been like the best for so many years. So yeah, I think I would pick him. And foreigners, I guess Stephano and Zerg. Just on the last months, I really like Nercho better than him. But yeah, Stephano is like that. Like you think, oh, he's on a slump right now, or he's playing bad, and then he goes to tournaments and crush everyone. So yeah, I think it's fair to say Stephano. LucifroN for Terran, and for Protoss, Mana maybe. I don't know. I think he plays a bit weird, like some all-ins versus Zerg and even versus Terran, and he's kind of unexpected, not like other players that are playing macro all the time, and you kind of figure out how to play them. Like playing versus Mana is always hard because he has a wide variety of strategies. So yeah, I would pick that.
Okay, do you have a final message? Anyone you would thank, etc.?
Yeah, to anyone supporting me as always, to my team, and not much more.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.